Oh! All right. Let's see what we can figure out. There's the code. I feel a little overwhelmed in regards to what the hell we need to do at the moment. Oh, we didn't do that. That's bad. But now we're doing it. And the same thing with these. I don't like having that in start. So I don't like this. Now I'm just getting caught up in some bullshit, to be honest. Let's go through these quick. This isn't used anymore. Let's see. So, what exactly do we need to do here? We have particle emitters. What is happening there? Add to container, particle emitter data. Particle data dict, emitter data type. That's something I removed? Particle emitter data. Man, I don't remember. Particle emitter container. So the idea was that we have a container that contains a list of emitters by type. But I feel like, because we have particle emitter data here, I'm not sure what logic I had arrived at in regards to that, but I'll be right back. Hello, B-boy Kenny, how's it going? So, if we think about this logically, the emitter does need to have index, but the data itself, I mean, the emitter needs to, like the time index, every emitter needs to have a time. So that shouldn't be in the data. That should be in the particle emitter. And so the emitter data right now only contains particle logic, which I think is probably necessarily true. We need to load particle data here, don't we? Not necessarily. I can have... Instead of having the particle data loaded in the main script, it could be loaded here. Not sure. Like maybe it should be an invoke. But or maybe it should just be a type. But I'm just a little bit unsure. Because I'm thinking like... If a particle emitter should be able to emit two different types of particles, for example, Or should that be two emitters that you put together, or... Particle emitter data. I'm just trying to think of what exactly it is we need here. But it's not sure. It needs to know all of the particles that it's going to create. Because I'm just thinking, like... Well, what if I have a fire and it goes out? Should that, you know... Should that create a new particle emitter that then emits smoke? Or should the smoke particle be a part of the fire emitter? Right. Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Because I feel like... I'm just thinking of, like, potentially... What if I end up having to spawn, like, 10 emitters? But maybe that's not that big of a deal, really. What's the thought on emitters? I just joined. Well, I'm just creating a particle system here. I haven't really done that before, so... I'm just, Also, it's... I haven't programmed this since, like, Wednesday, so I'm just trying to get my head back in the game here. But... And now my monitor is flashing. Oh my god, man. Stop. Hello, B-Boy Kenny, how's it going? Oh, yeah, you found that that part as well, right? Yeah. So I'm creating a particle container, which is like, it's a dictionary where the key is a type and the value is a list of particle emitters. So that's like if I have a fire emitter or a smoke emitter, then those are stored in the type as a list of smoke emitters. And the particle data for the smoke itself is meant to be stored in a dictionary here, so that I just load the data once and then I read whatever sprite info is needed from this dictionary, instead of like each particle having the information. And then we have a particle emitter. The emitter then needs to have a time, because it needs to know when it's gonna spawn new particles. I'm not sure if it might need something else, like rate or speed or something like that. And then I have a particle emitter data, which is meant to just plug into the particle emitter and have logic here. And then we have a particle emitter database where we just create new classes that inherit from particle emitter data. Like here we have ignite, that then has an override for the particle logic, and this is where we're then gonna spawn the fire, particles, right? And then we have a particle which contains a vector 3 for a position, a vector 3 int for a grid position, which I'm not sure if I need that. I could just floor the value, but I don't like having to floor the value necessarily, so I guess it really depends, because I need to do that anyway, right, to assign the position from the raw. So I don't know if it's really worthwhile, because it really just saves you operations when the thing is in the same position multiple frames, so you don't have to keep flooring. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that, but and the particle contains a time index and a particle data. The particle data contains an animation, which is a reference, and it's meant to just reference to the dictionary in my main controller. It has its sorting layer, a sorting layer override, sorting sublayer. It also has a particle reference, which is it's referencing itself, so it can affect the base object. Maybe the emitter has a velocity range. Yeah, maybe. I'm just not sure if it should be in the base emitter or if it's just fine to have that in the data somehow. But and all of this is it's just a little bit too much to have in my head right now to really think of, like, okay, what do I need in each step. So I'm thinking of maybe trying to just figure out where we are going to initiate this whole thing. Where are we going to spawn a particle? And then we just go from there, step by step, and figure out, okay, what do we need? Makes sense to get the base structure working first and then add the full data later. Yeah. So, right now, we would need an emitter when an object catches on fire, which would be in the combat module. Burning add. If burning stage equals 0 and power is greater than 0, then particle emitter equals main controller request emitter emitter.setData type of particle emitter database dot particles dot status effect dot ignite, and set data. This is where I left off, and this is where I'm not really sure what logic I had in mind. So we're sending in a type of the thing that we want to create an emitter of. And if the particle data dict contains key, then we add to container particle emitter data Should this just take the type again? Particle data dict. Cannot convert from particle data to effect particle emitter data. Yeah, okay. So if we go back here, here we're setting the data based on type. Here it says emitter data type, particle emitter database, ignite. Okay, so we are trying to set it based on emitter. And emitter data, particle data dict. Okay. Add to container. Add type. Yeah, so this is the wrong thing. This is just a type. I don't have a pool of particle emitter data because I think I want the emitters to have their data locally, not centralized, while the particles should have their data centralized, not local. Right. That way the emitter might be able to have a bit more control over its own function. Because we don't need to limit emitters as much as we need to limit particles in terms of logic packed into it. So what we're doing here is we're checking but I should be checking the particle emitter container. I think particle emitter.setData. I don't think it really needs to do anything like this. If we're setting data to the emitter, and what I'm trying to do here then is we need to check if the container contains this, and in that case, then we add to container. And here I have an emitter data that we're sending in, but I think this should just be a particle emitter. I almost feel like I should just delete this and start over with the logic, but because this is a remnant from when I was trying to centralize the emitter as well. So basically, we are still inside the emitter. So emitter data equals. So we have an emitter data type, right? Emitter data type. Get constructor. Is that how you... Because I have a type and I want to... Type.get constructor. C#, how to create from type. How to create object from type with a capital T. Make generic type. I don't know what a generic type means. I just want to make... I just want to access the constructor. Object type instance. Object type activator. Create instance object type. But create instance. Emitter data type. But that doesn't have a constructor. Let's ask ChatGPT. You're requesting an emitter and then set the emitter data so you can reuse the emitters that are done. Yeah. I don't think it's really as necessary for the emitters, but for the particles, I'm definitely trying to do that. Just doing object pooling for the particles, so that we don't have to instantiate them unless we exceed the initial pool size, right? And we don't exceed the maximum pool size. Then we start instantiating more. It's just standard object pooling. We just reuse objects, and if it overshoots the initial pool size, we create more, add it to the pool, and I did add a way to like remove them back down to the pool size, but I don't think it's a very good system right now. I need to remove that part, but I do think that we should release some over time if we have like created a big spike in the emitter count or in the particle count. Constructors of the type. You should use reflection to get a constructor info and invoke it manually. Oh. It seems kind of ass. Get types. So this is what it's showing me here. Constructor info ctor equals emitter data type dot invoke No, no. That's not the same. No. T get constructor. New. And then you need... What is the emitter data? Well, it doesn't actually have a constructor. So I don't know why I'm trying to do that. So I guess just doing create instance with the activator is fine. And I'm just stupid. Alright. So then now we should have the emitter data that we were looking for in the particle emitter. And then we say emitter data dot particle emitter equals this. That's actually what it should probably take in its constructor. But I guess it doesn't really matter that much. We can just set it. And I feel like this is where the emitter data should contain like a list of types. Of particle, or just a list of type. Particle types. I think. And then we go back here, and then we're gonna say for emitter data dot particle types dot count, and for each particle type, we're then gonna do this for particle data dict. And if it contains the emitter data particle types I, then we do nothing. So if this is false, then we don't want to add to container. I do think add to container is something that should happen here. But what I want to do is if the particle data dictionary does not contain the current type that we're checking, then we are going to add that particle type. And that means we need to add a new I think we need to do this again. Except this should be a particle data. And this should be emitter.particle types. This is very complicated. Like that. Okay. Particle emitter data. And then we add this to the container. The only thing we're doing here is we're checking if the container exists or not, and if not, then we create it and then we add it to the container. And then what? Let's go back to combat module. We're adding burning. And for that, we are requesting an emitter. Which returns us an emitter. It's added to the active pool of emitters, and it's added here. Then the data is set on the emitter. But I would say that the emitter needs... It needs, like, size and stuff. It needs parameters for the particles. So I think it needs, like, an area, a spawn area. But I'll be right back. All right, so the way this is gonna work now is that we're going to set an area. Well, not necessarily. We're going to set a target. So emitter dot target equals base object, and that's that. That's all it needs. Because the target contains the area. However, if it didn't have a target and it was just on a place, I think it still needs to have area. It's just something that they should have. Unless that should be in the emitter data as something specific, but I think probably not. But how should that area work? Maybe that should be... Let's wait until I need that at some point. Because that could work to just have it in the emitter data, that certain emitter types just have like an area and a size, while other emitter types have a target, and that means that their emitter area is the target's area, more or less. So right now we're using a target here. Did my package arrive? No package. All right. So I guess this should be good to go almost. You know, except for the fact that I haven't set the Ignite functionality. It's currently just an empty particle logic. But I think we should probably have another function. Because this is the particle logic, but I think it might be good to have a public virtual void initialize. That we can just run when we call it. And the particles are going to have to change a bit. Because right now, we're just going to make a rudimentary implementation. Which is it's just going to check the object size. And it's going to spawn a couple of flames on the sprite. And that's it. but the sprites actually need to have particle points, like anchors. And the flames need to be assigned to the anchor points. And then controlled that way. But I need to create a system for that, which is probably gonna suck ass a bit. Because I need to generate an entire system to create an entire system to generate the anchor points. And that needs potentially needs a script, like a script outside of the game, maybe. I'm not sure if it should just put it in the game. I don't think so. Because what I basically need to do is we need to go into a sprite and we need to create anchor points on the characters. And then I need to... The ideal scenario is that I split all the animations into... Well, they're kind of like that already, but I split all the animations into separate files. And I then create a second layer where I draw with a certain color on certain spots of the character. And that's then the anchor points, right? And then I have a script that goes through the asprite file metadata, and it reads those pixels and generates a JSON file that contains that stuff. And then we load the JSON file for the animation. That way we can have a list of positions that then represent the local position of each anchor point throughout the animation. But that means that I have to reload asprite files. And right now we're just using PNGs, so I would have to transition to reading asprite files for loading sprite data. Which is something I have not looked into yet, really. But for now, we're just gonna put it randomly on the sprite, so I'm not really gonna worry about this. But in the particle emitter data here, we now need to initialize, and that means that we have to create all the particles that we need. And I think we're just gonna say 4 particles for for now. We can do it like this, so particle emitter data. We have an initialize now, so we have set data. We set the target emitter.initialize. Maybe it should just initialize when we set the data. I think so. Like that. No, because then it doesn't have a target. So we need to initialize it afterwards. Otherwise, we need to do this in a way that has a constructor. So we need to say emitter.emitterdata.initialize here. And in set data, we don't do that. And we could do two kinds of initialize. We can have an initialize that takes a position and one that takes an object, but whatever. For now, let's just do this. So in ignite, particle emitter data base. What we can do now is we can say target particle emitter database. Particle emitter dot target dot data module dot value dot tile size. We can say int particle equals tile size dot x times tile size dot y. That way, an object that's 2 times 2 in size will have 4 particles. An object that's 3 times 3 will have 9 particles, etc. I think that would be okay for now. And an object that's 1 times 1 would have 1 particle. I'm not sure if that's too little, but whatever. We don't have any objects that's 1 at the moment, anyway. So this then needs to create particles. Have I made any logic for creating the particles themselves? Particle emitter. Add to container. Set data. No. So we have request particle here. I don't know if I should request. I don't know if it's better to like send in the amount of particles that we're requesting, or if I should just let's see, particle emitter data. Holy shit, I have so many things, it's so confusing. So particle emitter dot particle list dot add request for particle count. Then we're gonna say LOT particle equals particle emitter. We're gonna say main controller of control dot request particle. And then we're gonna say if null, if particle equals null, then break. Otherwise, we're gonna say particle list dot add particle. But we also have to initialize the particle. Particle dot particle data equals main controller dot control dot particle data dict ignite. Type of ignite. I think that should be correct. And then this should just be a reference to this. Then we add the particle to the particle list in the emitter. Which I don't know if the emitter itself should contain the particle list, but I don't see why not. It doesn't really matter. And what we need to do is we need to create a position for the particle. And that's going to suck a little bit, but if we just try to get it working first, then we can make it work better later. So, we have a particle here, so we have to say particle dot position equals particle emitter dot target dot position test dot position. And then we have to say particle dot position dot x equals particle dot position dot x minus particle emitter dot target dot data module dot value dot tile size dot x times data. What is it? What is it called? It's I have a class with all the info. What is it called? Where do I use that? I use it in the object. Settings, variables. Tile size X. Alright, so we have particle position X minus the tile size. That's not accurate either, because it's centered. So it needs to be like tile size divided by 2. Times setting variables plus math dot random math dot random. Fuck! There's no random? I know it's in Unity, but I don't want to use the Unity one. Or is there like a random in system? Random system.random. Ah, no, it's shit. You need to do like random equals new random. Why is it bitching about that? Huh? The ambiguity. And then we say random dot next which returns an integer. C# system random flow. The reason, well, maybe we just use the Unity one for now. Mathf.random. Wait, no, there's no random there either? Rand. Unity random. Am I stupid? Random.range. Do I not have Unity engine here? I do. Unity engine.random.range. Jesus. Fuck. Zero. And maximum is tile size dot settings variables dot tile size X. Or do I need to do it as tile size X there? The particle has a position and a position raw. So let's set position raw. Actually, we don't need position raw because it's based on the target position, which means we don't need a random. We don't need a float random, which means we can use random.next. And then we say random.next min value, max value. 0, max value inclusive or exclusive row. Either way, just get rid of that. And then we revert that to tile size X. We should be good. Then we repeat it for a Z. Something like that. And then what? Particle logic. All we need to do, I think, is just go through the particle emitter dot particle list dot count, and we just say particle emitter dot particle list dot update I dot update. The particle logic should take controller, controller. I should just start calling it NC. Holy fuck. Hold on. Mondays, right? So then in main controller, we have particle update that we're running here. Emitters to destroy for each particle emitter container. plist value update this. All right. So we enter the particle emitter, which then runs particle list.update. Now that's wrong. The particle emitter should do particle data, emitter data dot logic main controller. That's what should happen. And in the particle logic is where we do the particle list update. But we are still not done. The particle emitter database. We have created some particles here. Oh, I feel alright today. Bit tired. But I don't have a headache. How are you doing? Relaxing on a Monday? Wow. Oh my god. I work Sundays, so fair enough. Yep. So there we go into particle data update. Now, the particle doesn't have an update yet. So it's supposed to have an animation. Particle database. Ignite. Animation. Request animation. We actually have a lot of these things here. And this is where Ignite needs to have a public void override update. I don't know. The base particle data has an update. Void override update. It takes stupid. Am I dumb? Hello, Vulpes. It's going alright. How are you doing? The particle data has a virtual update. Ignite inherits from particle data, so we do public void override update. Am I dumb? Yeah, I was sick all week last week as well. Not in the same way, but yeah, I just had a headache. Still tired, but there we go. Yeah, I am retarded. I was just putting the override before, after the void, for whatever reason. All right. So I don't have a target. Another way of doing this is to say that instead of having an animation, the particle just has a sprite, maybe? That's it. That way, instead of instead of like iterating and going through with the animation inside of the particle, we can just set the particle's state in the emitter. I don't know if that's better. That way we wouldn't even need to have a time really. I don't know if it really matters. I know we would still need a time. Because it's like if you're not really gaining anything, you're just moving the values and data somewhere else and it's still the same anyway, then it kind of doesn't really matter. But I would have less references, actually, but I think the reference and the sprite would be the same size anyway, because they're both references. I don't think it matters. Now, the issue here is that right now the animation I feel like the particle should be able to handle itself, right? But for that, I do think that we need a target for the particle too, because the particle needs to be able to read the target for certain things. For example, here in the flame or in the ignite, I want there are like 3 different tiers to the flames, and that means that either I split every flame into 3 different animations, or 3 different animations. But the way it's not right now is that if we are at like tier 3, then we're just gonna loop through the tier 3 frames. But in order to be able to do that, we need to know what the current tier of the flame is. And to me, that does mean that the particle needs to have a target. And so, as we are creating, or let's see, we're in the emitter, and we are in Ignite, particle emitter database. We're then here, request particle. We are initializing it, and the particle, we're setting the particle dot target equals particle emitter dot target. That way, particle can say time index plus equals main controller dot logic delta time. Yeah. And then we have to say I do think it still needs a sprite. Maybe. Maybe not. we basically need to say if particle dot target dot combat module dot burning stage equals 1, then if time index is greater than or equals to a certain value, I'm just gonna put 0f for now, then we're gonna say time index equals 0f. Well, let's set this to 1. Then we loop that. And then here we're gonna say else if burning stage equals 2, if time index is greater than 3, then we're gonna set this to 2. Then we loop this. If burning stage equals 3, then if time index equals 5, then we set this to 4. So now this is looping. And then we iterate the time. Or do we? I feel like it should be like this. If burning stage is 1 and time index, then we do this. And time index, then we do that. Then we do that. And then here, this should be else. Because actually, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. But actually, I think it should be like this. We do else, or we do time index, and then here we should say this. So here we want sprite logic, then we set the time, and then we loop. And what we're gonna do is if time index is greater than whatever, then time index equals minus equals the length of whatever. Might be like 6 or something. I think the last one is... I think the last one is longer. That way we are subtracting and keeping the excess. And that should make it run and loop more properly, I believe. Something like that. Now, here's the next issue. Yeah, I do think we need a sprite. And we should set the sprite here. So we have a reference to the animation, we have a public LOT. What am I calling it? In the object, am I just using sprite? I am, which sucks because that's a Unity function. And then we need to go in and say particle database. Here we need to say particle dot current particle needs to have current sprite. Particle database, particle dot current sprite equals animation. Now I don't know how this works. Animation dot let's check the action module. Set sprite. Yeah. I don't know if I want to store all these values. I might just fetch them because they're actually stored in the sprite already, so there's no real reason to set the rect. We can just fetch them. But current sprite. That sprite. Action database. Let's check something simple like duel. Handle combat dual action. Set sprite. The sprite is set to animation list current animation index dot frames dot sprite. Okay, so how can we take that? That's because the particles right now are not using the same animation system exactly. Which I kind of think they should do, but whatever. Particle.current sprite equals... There we have a set sprite, but... so animation.frames, current frame index, that's then time index. Not necessarily. How... Why don't I have a like a get sprite thing here? I feel like I should. I should have like a public sprite get sprite by time. Float time. And then for frames frames.length frames I if frames I dot start time is greater than or equal to time, and frames I dot end time is less than time. This is a property though. Yeah, start time plus duration. All right. If that is true, then we're gonna say return frames I dot sprite. Else return null. That makes sense to me. That way, in the particle, we can just say animation dot get sprite by time index, and that's it. That's the current sprite. And then we do time index. We are getting kind of close. And then we need these numbers, which I guess we can grab here. Zero, 1, 2. So at tier 1 starts at 3. If burning stage equals 1 and time index is greater than or equal to 12, then time index is minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, that's not true either. Well, yeah, it is. It's greater than or equal to 12, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Time index is minus 9. If burning stage equals 2, then if time index is greater than 21, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do minus 9. If burning stage equals 3 and time index is greater than 33, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Minus 12. Like so. And then the particle is set there. Holy shit. And then we have a particle update here, where we deal with that. And then we need another function. This is where things, where we might not be able to finish today, because I'm not really sure. But let's see. So, late update. Sort objects by render index. This is where things become difficult. I need something like this. I'll be right back. But we need to sort the particles, and I think particles probably need to be sorted every frame. Because objects are more stationary, so we can just deal with them there. But I could also make it so that if the position is changed on any particle, then we update the particles as well. But what we then need to do is we need to create a new rendering system, because right now I'm just rendering each object in order after they've been sorted. But what we need to do now is we need to sort each particle as well, and then we need to ping pong back and forth between rendering objects and rendering particles, which means that we have to check every time whether the next object is further away than the next particle. And I don't know if this is going to suck ass, but I'll be right back. Alright, so I was thinking we can probably put them in the same list. Because we don't actually, because I remember last week I was like, okay, but I can't put them all in the same list because they don't share any inheritance. But we can just make a generic list, like an object list. And then we sort them in there. The sorting is going to be way slower, but I think we can do that. Let's see, LOT object list. What the fuck is it called now, man? Just object list. That one actually doesn't exist. And so let's just make an object list and call this entity list. And yeah, basically we need to say as we're creating an object, create object core. That's where it's added to object list. Entity list.add as well. Kind of sucks to deal with multiple lists, but it's not that big of a deal, I guess. Except that there's like 40,000 places where I'm adding and removing. What is it? What is this? Init level. Oh, we're adding from object list. But with this, I don't know. Maybe the object list should be sorted too. Because I feel like just having all of it in one list should make it easier and faster to sort. But I don't know if that's true, or if I should just like recreate the list every update. That feels like it's terrible. Like that. Should be something like that. And then we need to go to sort. Sort objects by render index. But that's not exactly what I'm doing. We're not using an index. I basically have to duplicate this. And see if we can change it. Sort entities by whatever. And then here, sorting layer 1, sorting layer 2. We need to go through the object list. But here we want to go through the entity list instead. And that's where it's not so easy anymore, because we can't just access the sorting layer override. So what we need to do is we need to do something more like sorting layer 1 equals if entity list I get type equals LOT object type of, then we need to do one thing, and then we need to say this else, then we need to say, though this needs to be an LOT object else we need to do kind of the same thing, except it's gonna be an LOT particle and then the sorting layer, is that in the particle data? I feel like that's wrong. Just put it in here, it doesn't matter. Or does it? Because the particle data is just a reference. So I need to have this stuff here. Maybe the override should be in the particle. But either way, if the particle data dot then here I feel like if the particle if the target equals null, then we want to do this. I feel like this can be done in a much, much better way. We should go in here. In the particle, we have a sorting layer override here. And what we're gonna say here is we're gonna say public LOT sorting layer, which should then return return if sorting layer override equals null, then particle data dot sorting layer, else sorting layer override dot value. That's so much less stupid. And that's what we're gonna call it, get sorting layer. But I also don't want to use a getter, so let's create a function, public LOT sorting layer, get sorting layer. We do that, and then we go to the object. But in the particle, it's a little different. Because here it's if sorting layer override. But the sorting layer override... This should all come later. Because we have to say if target does not equal null, then we're gonna say target dot get sorting layer. Yeah, which we need to implement in the object. Object get sorting layer. If sorting layer override equals null, then return sorting layer. No, it's gonna be data module dot value dot sorting layer. Otherwise, we return the override. And then in here, we're gonna say if the target is not null, then we get the sorting layer from the target. Otherwise, we'll do this. I don't really know how I like to format these, but I think I want to do something like that. And then what was I doing? That needed this? Right, here we're trying to fetch this shit. And then here, if it's an object, we can now just say get sorting layer instead of all of this dog shit. Why is it? Oh. Else particle get sorting layer. And we don't need to do any of this. We just delete all of it. There. And then we need to do the same thing, but for sorting layer 2. And then this is +1. And so far, it's all good, right? Here we're checking sub layer. But let's see, entity list. Everything should be entity list. Object to sort. That should be an object. Continue here. Sorting order index. What is sorting order index? Pixel position Y. Is that what I've set it to? So I'm not really doing anything here. I'm just setting it to pixel position Y. Hey. It's Monday. We're gonna try programming tonight as well. Hopefully that goes okay too. Oh, actually, I need to... Sure. The big boy is awake. All right. So we do need to... I think we need to get the sublayers and stuff like that too. But we can do that as we go along. So Let's keep replacing. Let's just replace every object list here with entity list manually. Hey. And then here, else if sorting layer 1 equals sorting layer 2. This is where we need to initialize something new. Here we are checking sorting order index. So let's see. We need int y1, int y2. And we need int x1 and int x2. Then here, we're immediately gonna say, we're gonna do this again. And then we're gonna say entity list. If this is an object, then we get dot position test dot position dot y. No, it's modified position dot y, I think. And this is y1, y2, and then if it's a particle, then we get... actually, I need to make some functions. Public int get sorting index 1, sorting index y, let's call it that. Then we'll return if target does not equal null, then we are going to return target dot modified position dot y plus position dot y. Else we're gonna return position dot y. And then we'll do the same thing for sorting index x. Yeah, I don't think the Z comes into play here. Because in some situations, I have to modify the Y by the Z. But I don't think that comes into play here. No, it shouldn't. Okay, so particle dot get sorting index y. 1. And then this is gonna be replaced with y1 and y2. Else if y1 equals y2, then we're getting the sub-sorting layer. So that's also something we need here. We need LOT sorting sublayer. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's called a sub-sorting layer. What is it called? LOT sub sorting sublayer. This is what I wrote. Fucker. Am I blind? Oh. There. Sorting sublayer. Sublayer was written as one word, that's why the camel case didn't make sense. So then we need to do this. Again. Except now it's sorting sublayer. Sorting sublayer. Get sorting layer. Sorting sublayer. You know what? I need to change this. There needs to be a large L there. But I think that we should never, like, the sorting sublayer never gets overridden. So the sublayer should just return particle data dot sorting sublayer. I think. Then we have sorting sublayers. What is happening here? This is wrong. This should be equals to, I think. Then we need to do this again. There. I think this should work. That way we now have a way to sort entities in the same manner as we were sorting only objects before. Which then includes both objects and particles! Ooh. Yeah. And then we have this update sorting order. So the question is, should I at all be sorting the other, like the particle list and the object list? Or should I exclusively sort entities? I think I should just sort entities. Because sorting the objects is irrelevant unless we are using those lists to create a sorted entity list, which I'm not. I just have multiple lists. And this also, the shadow source list, this might also need to be changed. And I need to write a manual sorting algorithm here too. Because particles might have shadows, right? Which would run really poorly. I think, like really, really poorly, but they might have shadows. They might. Let's see. entity sorting is implemented. Add rendering method for particles. Now, the particle rendering method, I think I'm going to just create a static renderer in the main controller that you just call. Well, it doesn't need to be static, but it's just a function in the main controller. We just call it, and it just runs through the object, gets some values from it, and then runs the shader. That way I don't need to have a rendering method inside of each particle, for example. We just send it off to the rendering machine. Because I was thinking, okay, so should I create like a component out of my current rendering method? And put that in, but I think I'm gonna do the same thing with objects eventually, but right now it kind of doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's not a big deal either way. Like, is the function inside of the object or is it inside of the controller? It just doesn't matter. But I think I don't know exactly how it works. No, for yeah, even if I have a rendering method inside of the particle itself, that's still not, it's not going to duplicate any data or anything, because the method is going to just be referenced. Regardless. So it doesn't really matter whether I have it as a function in the particle or in the controller, but I kind of just think that the way we just draw, there's no reason for that to be different between a particle and an object, at least not to any significant degree, because it should just be like, how big is it, where is it, which order is it in, and then you render it, and that's it. And as long as you just have the sprite and a position, you have pretty much all of that already. So the reason I want to have it in the main controller then is because if I have a rendering method inside of the object and I have a rendering method inside of the particle, that's then duplicated code. That might lead to annoying bugs and maintenance. Rendering centralized in main controller, question mark? Something like that. That might be it for today. We have a meeting coming up. I went to bed like early at 2 a.m. or something. And I still woke up at 12. I think it was because my neighbor, I woke up because my neighbor was yelling at 6 a.m. And it was yelling like, He was yelling like he was, I don't know, it was super weird. It was like, and then he did that like 3 times. And then 10 minutes later, he did it again. 10 minutes later again, and then he kind of stopped doing it. I think he was playing some video game. It's her son. I think he was up gaming at 6 a.m. Because she works nights. Both of my neighbors' parents work nights, and they're both single moms. So whenever they're working nights, their children are up gaming at 3 a.m. and screaming. Because no one's home. And they're screaming at the top of their lungs. But yes. I'm not sure if I'll program tonight. I'm aiming for it. If I have the energy when the time comes, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll just play some video games, I guess. But we'll aim for a programming stream tonight. In about 3 hours? 4 hours? 4 hours, maybe? But until then, thanks for hanging. Have a good day. Bye-bye.